All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to today's session. So today we're going to be continuing from our previous session where we talked about wireframes and prototyping, the low fidelity, the high fidelity, the mid fidelity. So we are going to, for the first hour of today's class, we're going to try to design something, a wireframe on Figma. Right? So you see how it's done, how we place our elements, and how we get the whole skeleton of our application. Right? So this is where we are continuing from where we stopped last. Right? So when we are done with that wireframe, then we'll now go ahead to the visual um, design elements. That is the topic for today's class. So we're going to talk about colors, how to implement colors in our designs, what color psychology, what each color mean, how to create our color palette, how to know which color we should be using for which application or which design. Right. So to get started, the prompt we're going to be using today is so design a low fidelity wireframe for a mobile e-commerce app homepage that allows users to search and browse products, view categories, and see promotional ads. Right? So most times, when you have from your information architecture, you have already gotten a skeleton or a map. A site exactly that's why it's called a site map, a map of how your application should look like. So now we are trying to design each page at a time. So that's what we're going to start. So that's what we're doing here by creating wireframes. So like I said in our last class, creating wireframes help us to it takes off that pressure of perfection. Of when instead of stressing about colors and fonts and wasting a lot of time, we can just go ahead into Figma and start designing without so much thought to what typography are we using? Does this thing look pretty or not? So what you're focused on when you're creating wireframes is just content structure, content hierarchy, on your layout. And so that's the focus of the wireframes now. So for this prompt now, usually when you see this kind of prompts is you're finished learning UI UX design, let's say you finish this course and you decide to, let's say, work freelance, right? So most of the times when you get all these freelance jobs, they might want you to just design a feature, but it might not be a full application. It might not be a full product. Someone can just tell you I'm willing to pay you $30 for a dashboard. Just design a dashboard for me. I want the dashboard to include this and this and this. All right. So having those layouts, those structure, like those features that you have ideated, we have it now. That's why we now want to structure it. That's what wireframes help us to do. So basically, so this is the prompt we'll be working with today. We're going to create a mobile e-commerce application. E-commerce is simply buy and sell. So just think of Jumia, think of Gigi, think of Konga. That's what we are working on. So a mobile app homepage. We want to create the homepage that allows users to search. So from this prompt now, you start picking out features. So from your research, from your ideation, you should already have features that you're expecting to find or to include in each page. So for this, we're saying there should be search. There should search and browse products. So there should be an option, or there should be an element in our design that allows our users to search and browse products. To view categories. So categories should be displayed on the home page and to see promotional ads. Right. So this is a very familiar interface. So the first thing we'll do is to get a frame, or like our mentor said, okay, let's create a section. The sectioning helps you to um frame your work, so you're not working in a bare canvas. Right. So just create a section. We will name this e-commerce platform. It would create maybe a mid fidelity wireframe. a real low fidelity wireframe, you don't even need Figma to create it. You just use your pen and your paper and you create that wireframe, all right? So we have created our section. Now the next thing is to get a frame, right? So we go here. This is the frame tool. This is the section tool. This is the slice tool. So we click on frame. So when you click on frame, you can either decide to draw out your frame, or you can decide to come to the properties panel here and pick a frame. So remember, we are working with mobile, so we're going to go to phone. And like I said, the preferred frame that I like to use, and most people in the design industry like to use because it's like the standard. The measurement is kind of standard, is the iPhone 13 mini. So you might try to use other frames and test them out, but usually we start with you can just use the iPhone 13 mini for now. Okay, so I'm going to put this in the frame. I'm going to enlarge, increase the section. It's too small. All right, so I'm going to zoom in to this. Yeah, so this is my frame now. So this is just I'm envisioning that this is a screen, a screen that I'm working with. So I want to make this look more real to me. I can round the corners. So around the corners, I went to appearance. You have opacity here. You have the corner radius. I can make it 32, right? So now it's looking more like a phone with the rounded corners. So it looks more familiar to us. Okay. So now the first thing we're going to work on is depending on the stage of your design process, because before you get here, before you get to your wireframing, you should have created your information architecture. You should have done some background work and all that. So by the virtue of creating your information architecture, you should have your navigation system outlined. Okay. So now you can decide to so navigation simply we're going to use a bottom nav bar. Is the most common in mobile phones. So I can just simply click on a shape, a rectangle, and I just draw a small rectangle here. Okay. Then I duplicate it. All right. I duplicate it. I duplicate it. So I maybe by virtue of my information architecture, I want 4 items in the bottom nav bar. So I space this out. So there are different ways we can ensure that this is equidistant to each other. You can click on all 4 of them. So when you click on all 4, then you go to your properties bar like always, and you click on you see the positions where you can different alignments, align to the left, align to the middle, align to the right. So you click on more options and click on tidy up. So we're already familiar with tidy up. We also used it in FigJam. So tidy up just gives your element selected, it arranges it, it basically tidies it up easily. Yeah. Now we can bring all of them down in the middle. Okay. So now everything is aligned. We'll put it in the center. So Figma, by virtue of this ruler on Figma, it aligns our items. So if I move around, I can see that now it's in the middle because I can see a red line showing me that my items are in the middle of this screen. So now I put a small box to identify to show or to indicate that this is my bottom navigation, right? So yeah, so I can also okay, there are different ways I can use this rectangle and create a small demarcation line. So yeah. Okay. So this is a small demarcation line from the main screen content and my nav bar content. Right. So now I have my nav bar already. So the first thing that this prompt tells us is the search and browse project. Browse project. So by virtue of this, I can by ideation. Okay, let me create a search bar. I'll just drop in a search bar here. I'm going to bring it down a little. So I want it at the top of my screen so that it's one of the first things my user sees. So this is a rectangle. I'm just going to make it a bit circular. Let's say 32. So now I want a kind of circular search bar. So this is representing my search bar, as simple as this. Okay, so now I'm not giving a lot of considerations to spacing or the width and the height or and all of that because this is just a wireframe, basically a skeletal structure of how I want my design to look like. Okay, so I can start to add a stroke to this. I make the color gray, then I remove the fill. So it looks like this instead. So it's looking more like a search bar now. All right, so just depending on what you think goes with your personality of the project you're working on. All right, so now this is my search bar, and I remember now. Okay, this is the home page. I'm working on the home page, so um, usually I can include like a kind of introduction, maybe "Hello, Abigail." That's kind of thing. I can just put a text here to show to indicate that. Okay, no, not this. Um, yes. Okay, so I'm using this to represent a text. These are just all shapes and all. So I'm not actually using the text tool. I'm not actually using icons and all that. I'm just working with shapes to create a the skeleton of my application. So now I have identified that I want an introduction or like a welcome message here. And I want a search bar here. Let's say I want the person's profile to be here. And I'm going to get a circle, an ellipse rather, and just add it here. So by default, the layout it will give you is 100. So I'm going to make this 60. Right. So now to resize your elements on Figma, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but if you want to keep your dimensions intact, I want this to be 100 and I want that if I'm making my width 50, I want my height to be 50 also. So I click on this, lock my aspect ratio to include a constraint in my design. So now if I make the width 50, the height is also 50. So I want this smaller, so I'm going to make it 40. Right, so I put a profile picture here. Yeah. Okay, so that is how it's looking now. I'm going to make this 2. the width of the stroke to. I'm going to bring this outside and I'm going to make this light. And I can just simply click on one of the colors that are here already. Alright, so I'm going to make this center instead. Alright, so this is how it's looking. There's no colors, there's no shape and all. So sometimes if you want to implement, if you want to use icons, sometimes we use icons in information architecture, in wireframes rather, to make things clearer. So I can simply include a search icon here. So it's more obvious that this is a search icon. All right. So now I've accounted for the search and browse product. So now I want to see include view categories and see promotional ads. So by virtue, it's a promotional ad, so it should be obstructive, it should be in the user's face. So it's probably the first thing you will see after seeing the search bar. So I'm going to get a rectangle for that. I'm just going to draw it. This. So a promotional banner. I'm going to make this and add 16. So this is my promotional banner now. Yeah. With some text in it. Okay, so now we can see that my text shape is behind the promotional banner, but I want it in front. So I simply use Control arrow, bring it forward. So like that. So I'm going to maybe reduce the size of this because just want a small text and put it somewhere here. All right, so this is okay. So to increase, I want to increase the space between them. I can go to the properties panel. From the layout now, you can see that the space, this indicates the space between the elements that are currently selected. So the space currently is 6. The space or the distance between elements is 6 pixels. So I can increase this to 16, 12, or any of that. So yeah. Okay, so this is what it is looking like now. So now I have accounted for the search, I've accounted for the promotional ads, and it's left for to view categories. So I'm going to get one of the text indicator. Okay. So nothing that helps you to organize your work and to ensure that everything is where it's supposed to be is, first of all, this is the welcome message. So you can select all of them. Select all, you have to click on shift. So holding the shift tool and selecting the elements you want to group or you want to um, effect a collective action on. I'm going to click on the first one. I'm going to click on shift and select the rest. Then I'm going to click on Control G to group them all. So in the layers panel, I'm going to rename this group to welcome message. So this helps us to understand what each element in our wireframe is doing. Then for this is for the profile picture. So instead of ellipse 4, I'm going to name this profile profile picture. Right. So this profile picture is going to probably have a dual value of first of all, showing the person their profile picture, and if you click on it, it would lead you to the person's profile settings. So this is the search bar. I'm going to name this rectangle search bar. Hold on, please. All right, so let's continue. So this is the promotional banner. Promotional banner with this text. So going to group everything one. All right, so it really helps when you name things on your layers panel so that at any point you're not confused on what anything is supposed to mean. Okay. So these four items here are your nav bar. So I'm going to just select all this. All right. So now if you look at my frame, see that everything has been labeled. I have my promotional banner, I have my profile picture, my welcome message, my search bar, and my nav bar. So we have this rectangle here, which doesn't have any meaning for now, but it's supposed to represent categories. So I want to work on creating categories. So let's say I can get a square. So I can do something small like this and give it 16 border regions. So I can just adjust it. So depending on how much detail you want to give your wire. Okay, so now just let me know if you are confused about anything I'm doing, whether it's the keys I'm using or how I'm creating the elements, right? So I'd like to align this so that it's respecting one by a similar margin. Okay, so this is just a rough sketch, so you might not have to stress too much about the details like I did. So for this, I just created like some categories. Let's say this is an e-commerce platform. So this could be grocery. So these are some groceries that are displayed here. This could be apparels and clothing. These are some items that are displayed here. Could be on another promotional banner or another ad. All right. So now this is just the interface. This is just the screen at one glance. So we should recognize that this is a screen and it's scrollable. So sometimes you can add some elements of continuity. So now what I'm going to do that here is like I have my radius here. So the radius as at now is 16, 16 for all sides. But I want to manipulate this rectangle so that my radius at the left, this left here, and this right here is at 0. Okay, so I can actually reset it from here. I just click on the radius, then drag it down. But if I do that, all of them, all the radius are going to be reset. But now I want to just reset just the left, this one here and this one to remove that constraints. I'm going to go to my appearance. Then this is my corner radius. I'm going to click on individual corners. So there's a setting here where when you click on individual corners. So now I can manually impute my values. So I'm going to go to the bottom right and make it 0. I'm going to go to the bottom left and make it 0. All right. So now this is what it looks like. Okay. So this is what it looks like. This is a simple sketch of a wireframe. This is a very, very simple sketch of the wireframe. All right. So now I grouped some items. Let's say I want to adjust. Now I want to adjust this line here. I want it to be slimmer, but it's grouped. So to get into it, I'm just going to go to my layers panel and I'm going to click on this arrow here. There's a little arrow here. When I click on it, it expands the groupings, like the elements that make up that group. I'm going to click on the rectangle, this one here, and I'm going to make the height 1. So something very slim. Okay. Then I'm going to bring this here. All right. So what we achieved here now is that this rectangle shape gave this screen the illusion of continuity. It's giving you the idea that if you scroll up, because from your mental image, from your recognition of shapes, you know, a rectangle, how a rectangle is supposed to be shaped. You know that this is rounded here, this is rounded here, so you're expecting something similar to this. All right. So by virtue of what we did here, you're going to recognize that you have to scroll to see the full content of the ad or the promotional banner that you created. Right. So this is very simple. So if you want to make this more detailed, we can include icons. So I attached a simple icon kit here. So we're going to let's get a search icon. So this is what a search icon looks like. We're all familiar with it. So we're going to get it. Click Control C to take it, and we're going to go back here to this search bar, and we'll click Control V. Okay, so this is it here. Yep. So if you notice now, if you look close, you're going to see some lines on search bar. This is because it comes with a pre-filled layout guide, some grids. So I can just hide it and it goes. Or I can remove it if I do not want it. I'm going to change the color. I'm going to use something in gray too. Yeah. So I'll just put this icon here. Yeah. So now it is clear that this is a search bar. That's clear as day that this is a search bar. So let me look for something that indicates pictures. So you can include icons to your wireframes just to make it a little more detailed. So this is a photo. This is a photo icon. Going to take this Control C. Right, so we're going to have a detailed class on iconography, how to get your icon kits, how to use them, best practices for all that. So I'm going to Control V here. I'll remove the grid. Alright, so I can even remove the frame entirely because the frame is a bit obstructive. So I can come here, copy the vector, Control C. I'll just delete this, Control V. No. Right, so to ensure that I want to expand this I want to make it bigger because I want to put it in this promotional banner to indicate that this promotional banner is a picture. Yeah, so it's a banner, so obviously there's a picture there, but I'm not going to put the picture now because I'm not creating the high fidelity design. So I'm just going to, there are different ways to do that. Like I said before, you can come to your layout here and lock your aspect ratio. When you lock your ratio, then you can now resize it as much as you want. Alright, so this, I can just place this in the middle here. So yes, this is obviously a picture. Then I'm also going to do that the same for the categories because these are also pictures. I'm going to make it smaller. Okay. Yep. So yeah, so you can also do the same thing for this one down here. I'm just going to all right, so now wireframe is coming to life. Things are looking a lot more clearer. All right, so now we have so for your nav bar, you can decide to leave it like this, but to help you visualize it better, you can still decide to include some icons. So let's say this is an e-commerce platform, so I obviously have the home. This is your home. Right, so maybe I want my nav items is the home page, the wish list, the cart, and profile. Yeah, so let's say that's what I want as my. So now I have my home page. I'm going to take this. I'm just duplicating them. I just take this and I duplicate it. I've got my home. Then this is my shopping bag. So I can just take this as my shopping bag. Mm, and I want a wish list. Yeah, so my wish list I can just choose the heart icon, which is known to denote favorite. Control E. Okay, so I can have one, let's say wallet. One of my navbar items is wallet, so that could also work. Yeah, so now I've gotten the four icons I want. I'm just going to carry them on. So how I'm selecting all these items, I'm just simply holding on Shift, then selecting them. That's how I'm dragging and carrying a lot of items at once. So I'm going to click on Control X, which is simply cut to take them out of there. And I'm going to bring them down to here, clicking Control V. So these are the items now. All right, so I'm just going to keep it here. Yeah, so I'm going to replace all this with this now. So first off, I'm going to here, I'll take this Control C. So there's a way you can, instead of me deleting this and dragging this home icon down to this place, I can simply replace this box with the icon automatically. So there's a keyboard shortcut for it. So now I've clicked on, you can just right click, okay, copy. And when I come here, I'll click on paste to replace, not paste, not Control V, but Control Shift R. I'm going to click on paste to replace. So it just replaces the item there for you. Okay. So this is at 7. I can decide to increase the size of this a little. So it's fair. Let me say I increase it to 24. I'm going to do the same for others. Control C, Control Shift R. And I'm going to increase the size to 24. So the only sorry about that. So one thing you should always keep in mind in your design is just consistency. Whatever I'm doing to this, I'm going to do it with this, right? So I increase the size of the other one, so I'm going to increase the size of one after it because they're all at the same level. Remember hierarchy and consistency. So Control C, going to click into this Control Shift R. I'm going to drag it down here and make the size, make the width 24. Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah, so okay. So I'm going to select all of them and once again I'm going to click on tidy up. Okay, so this just makes everything aligned. Then I'll delete these ones that are up here. Alright, so I'm coming to the comments. Let me just finish this up. Alright, so this is how it's looking. So now this is the home page. So I can decide to um signify that this is the home page. So I can do that by either. So there are different ways to show that something is selected. I can simply put an indicator up here to show that home is being selected. Or I can I'm just going to make this once light. No, no, no. It has to be consistent. So I have to use the same color throughout. Yep. Okay, now so without any indicator, but just by virtue of their color, we can see that the home icon is darker and it's more eye-catching, and so that implies that it's being selected at that moment compared to the other icons that it's a bit grayed out. Right, so this is just a very simple e-commerce homepage. So we can also go ahead to create all this one inside. So we can also go ahead to create the product details page. Alright, but we have elapsed our 1 hour time frame. So let's see. Let me see the. Okay, so Daniel said he's confused about the grouping part. Okay, so let me go back so ensure that everybody is with me. How do you remove the layer in the search? I mean, what do you call it? Abigail asked, how do you remove the layer in the search? I do not understand what you mean. Do you mean the fuel of the search?
Yes, ma.
Okay, the fuel. So what I did here was I got a rectangle. I'm just going to put this out here. I got a rectangle. Then I rounded the corners to 32 or to 16, any one of your choice. Okay, so I'm just going to make this pure white. Then I added a stroke. Okay, so there's in each element there's a fill. Fill is what is inside the element, and stroke is the outline. So I added a stroke. Yeah. So the stroke, I made the stroke weight 2, and I gave it a light brown color. Let me just give it a dark color because of the background we're working with. So when I gave it a stroke, this is what you're seeing here is the stroke. And I removed the fill because it was no longer necessary. So I clicked on remove here. And also decide to hide it and unhide, hide and unhide and remove. Yeah, so that does that explain that to you, Abigail?
Yes, ma.
All right. Okay, so and the grid in the icon. Okay, so these icons came with a prefilled grids, with some grids added to it. So what I did here was I just simply remember properties panel is what you're working with. So let's say I duplicate this Control D. This is an icon set. You can find different icon sets in Figma community. In our class in iconography, we're going to just look at how to get your icons and how to use them. So, so this is the icon, and if you come to the layers panel, the properties panel, you're going to see the layout guide. And you see, so there are two grids attached to it. So again, I removed them. All right, so does that explain that? So yeah, so now I've removed the grid. but it still has a frame. So if you notice, this is the icon and it has a white background. So when I come to the layers panel, I see movie as a frame and I click on the drop down arrow and I'm seeing the vector. The vector is the icon and that's what I want. So I can simply click on Control C. So this Control C is copying the vector and not the frame. If I click on Control C and I click on Control V now, sorry, what did I? Yeah. So now I'm getting just the icon itself. So it just depends on the icon kit you're working with. Some icon kits will not give you this amount of stress with the grids and the frame itself, but it's just done to make sure everything is following the same aspect ratio, the same size, right? So if you look at these icons now, you find out that they are all all have the same dimension. So they all have the same dimension. So when you put them alongside each other in your design, no one looks no one is too big and no one is too small. So it's balanced, right? So that's why they're using a frame to ensure that all the icons can fit into that frame. So having the same aspect ratio, basically the same height and the same width. That's the purpose of that grid. Okay. So if you don't want to go through the stress of going to the layers panel and getting your vector, you can simply double click. So double click helps you to nest into groupings, right? So if something is grouped inside something and is grouped inside something, if you want to get to the one inside, just double click. Just click as much as you want till you get there. You can also click on control. So now let's say I leave this this element and I click on control on my keyboard or command on your Mac. Then I navigate my arrow to that what I want to select. So holding control and clicking and right clicking would select the exact element that my arrow is pointing at. All right. So control, yeah. So I can delete that. I can undo, and that's how I navigate all that. Okay, so for Daniel that talked about grouping, so yeah, so I talked about the more modern or the more advanced type of grouping, which is auto layout. So that's the one you'll mostly be using when you start working on your high fidelity design. But for the purpose of this class and the low fidelity wireframe, I just use the simple Control G to group. Right. So now in this you have, okay, let me use this now. This is your search bar outline, and this is your search bar icon. So I can group the two of them. To group them now, I'm just going to hold shift. So shift enables you to select different things, multiple things at once. So if you're familiar with using um your desktop and all, you should be familiar with the shift tool. That's what it helps you do. It helps you select more than one item at once, especially in design softwares. So I'm going to click on, so now I'm currently selecting the search bar icon. Now click on shift and select the search bar outline. So both of them are selected currently. If I look at my layers panel, I'll see that both the search bar and the search bar icon is currently being selected. And I click on Control G. And once I click on Control G, a group is created. And I can rename this search bar. I'm on search bar component. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's that. Are there any more questions before we head into colors? Abigail says she prefers the control and clicking. Yes. All right. So there are different ways to navigate Figma. Like I said, you can use your mouse. Just right click and you see the different options. You can use your keyboard You can also use your layers panel and your properties panel to do a lot of things. Right. So this is this is what we're going to create for the purpose of this class. If you have time on Thursday, we'll continue this. Maybe we'll create for the product details wireframe. But let's head into the visual design element. Right, so hold on, let me share my screen. All right, please indicate let me know if you can see my screen, please. Just a thumbs up or a message if you can see my screen. All right, thank you, Luashun. Thank you, Emmanuel. All right, so for this class or for this section of this class, we're going to be talking about principles of UI design, visual design elements. All right, so we have come a long way from the research and the ideating, brainstorming. We've created our structure via the information architecture. We have created your wireframe. So that's your grade, what we just created now, the grades and all. Like there's no color, there's no typography, there's no, not pretty. It's just structured and clean, but it's not attractive. Yeah. So it's giving the users, it gives your users a sense of what is there, but it's not the actual product. So now that we're now going ahead to start creating the actual product or the high fidelity wireframes, so there are some principles that should be guiding us. There are some principles that should be guiding us on the use of design elements, such as the colors we're using, our typography, the spacing, even the grids. Like you saw the icons that we imported, it already had grids and they were there for a reason. Right, so it was put there to respect the spacing and the alignment or aspect ratio that was given to the icon. Okay, so we're going to talk about how we're going to be creating our own colors, our palettes, the typography system that we're going to be using, the grid system we're going to be using, the spacing. So if you notice, all the designs I've been working on, when I've been adding spaces and alignments to the work we did on Figma, I was always I'm either using 16 pixels or 32 pixels or 12 pixels, 8 pixels. So I'm not sure, I don't think anybody saw me use something like 3 pixels or 4 pixels. So I've not been saying it or I've not actually mentioned it, but I've been consistent and following a system of spacing. Right, so we're going to get into all that. What do we let's say I want to add some space between some elements. Do I just put 5 pixels there? Like what actually guides my visual design now? So we have left the long talk of structure and focus and usability, and now we're talking about visuals, attractiveness. How do we make this appealing? Right, so we are trying to merge the UI to the UX that we have been creating since. That's why we get into the principles of UI design. So for this class, we're going to talk a lot on colors. Then our class on Thursday, we're going to head into typography, spacing, and alignment. All right, so a little introduction. The key elements of an excellent user interface is attractive design and effortless operation. So users must easily navigate the product without difficulties during usage. So like I've been saying, usability, that's what this is trying to tell us. So as much as structure, we have created a good structure now. We have created a good flow. We have ensured that our information architecture is being created to meet the needs of our users. So we should not use colors and typography and these visual elements to ruin what we have created already. Instead, you should be enhancing it. You should be making it more attractive or more appealing. Right? So if you want to compare between, let's say, a design now, a design that is usable but it's not very attractive, something that is very basic. Let's say most of our banking applications that we use to send money. I'm not talking about the fancy um microfinance banks now. I'm talking about like simple maybe UBA or GT Bank. So their UI user interface is very, very plain. It might not be very pretty, but it's usable because you can send your money easily. Send your money, you get your alert, you get your the notification, you send your receipt. So now it's usable, but might not be very attractive compared to an application that is very, very attractive, but you can't use it. So it's like a waste of attractiveness or waste of visuals. Something that is very pretty and appealing, but you cannot use it. So what's it made for? You're just going to look at it, right? So our job as user interface designers is to make sure the UI of our applications are both attractive and still maintains that user friendliness that we try to inculcate via the design thinking process. So we're going to be talking about color theory in UI design, understanding color psychology. So this topic of color is like it's a lot. It's a lot. You can see a 500-page textbook on color psychology. So it's a very, very big concept that I would advise each of us to do our own research. So as much as I try to include a lot of information in this class, there's still a lot more out there, and we cannot touch everything. So do your own research and enjoy. So what is color theory now? Color theory is simply the practical science of mixing colors according to how people see and perceive them. So the modern color theory focuses on the color wheel and its definition of primary, secondary, and tertiary colors. Designers have to understand the importance of colors as it is one of the most influential factors in our perception of everything we see, be it a web page, book cover, cereal box, or a piece of art. Now, you looking at this slide, the first thing you're seeing, apart from the content of the slide, is the colors. You're seeing the white background, the black text, the KodeCamp brand colors of blue and green, right? So that's the very first thing you see. That's the very first thing we perceive when we see something digital, whether digital or even physical, like a book cover, a piece of art, or a carton of something you are eating too. So a color wheel. So the tool that we usually use to explain this color theory and color psychology is the color wheel. So it's simply a circular diagram that shows the relationship between different colors. It's used to understand how colors mix and match. So what the color wheel looks like. You see there's a kind of movement between from red to yellow to green to blue. Right? So this was not just it wasn't just made like that. There is mathematical science behind it. Each color has been put in each place for a predefined reason. So for every one of us here, you can just simply get a picture of the color wheel and have it close to you because it's something that you would have to um get familiar with the way the colors are arranged, the color schemes you can obtain from it. Now we're trying to understand how we can mix and match colors. So by virtue of this this bootcamp, CodeCamp as a company, their brand identity, they are using blue and green. So they did not come to blue and green by chance. They did not come to blue and green by chance. They had to probably do some research and find out that these two colors they work together. So that's why you see sometimes you see some colors that you're trying some colors that you just can't see well. Let's say the accessibility is low. And so there's a lot of factors that um inform us when we are choosing colors for our design. And the color wheel is one of those tools that help us to classify and mix colors in design. All right, so features of the color wheel. So the color wheel primarily features the primary colors, which is your red, your blue, and your yellow. So those are the primary colors. Some people here, if you're into design or if you paint and you draw, you might know some of these um features. You have your red, your blue, and your yellow, which makes up your primary colors. Depending on the scheme you're using, though. You have your secondary colors, which is formed from a mixture of the primary colors. All right. So let's say you mix your blue and yellow to get your green, your red and your blue to get your burgundy, to get your orange. So that's how the secondary colors are gotten. But primary colors are the first, they're the fundamental colors that we have: red, blue, and yellow. Then the secondary colors are derived from these primary colors, like combinations of both of two or three of them. And the tertiary colors are mixed from primary and secondary colors. So now when you bring, let's say, a green that was not normally found in your primary colors, or purple rather, I'm going to bring purple and blue. So my combination of purple and blue now would give me a tertiary color. It's not secondary, it's not primary, but it's tertiary. So those are the three colors we can get on our color wheel. The purpose of the color wheel is to allow designers to quickly understand the nature of each color and combine them effectively. So on that terminology we're going to get familiar with is color temperature. So we have warm colors and cool colors, right? So I'm not saying that it's not that their temperature per se, but sometimes it's some colors that you perceive. Some colors like yellow, red, orange, they are warm. They give you this feeling of warmness and sunlight rather. Then there are colors like blue, purple, green, they are cooler colors. So you see things like when you talk about warm tones and cool tones. So depending on your brand identity, so this is where um this this color psychology plays a role. Depending on your target audience, your brand identity, the emotion that you want to be evoking on your users, start thinking and start asking yourself what colors would evoking this emotion. All right. So now we're not even talking about the typography and the copyright of using compelling sentences. We're talking about where we're going as little as colors. All right. So in the color wheel, if you simply divide the color wheel into half from the x-axis and the on the x-axis rather, you have the warm colors on top and the cool colors under. Right. So that's why I told you that the arrangement of the colors on the color wheel is mathematical. It was pre-planned. It was arranged. There was the mathematics behind it. That's why it's a very, very essential tool that all designers should have. So I'm not asking you to cram the color wheel, but just have it, maybe have a picture of it somewhere. So in some design agencies, you can see them, they'll just print a huge poster of the color wheel and just paste it somewhere. So it's very accessible to everybody. Okay, so like I've said, the warm colors are composed of red, orange, and yellow. So generally denote energy, activity, strength, and passion. So if you're looking for things like fitness application or maybe an athletic application, you see things like orange because orange already gives you that sense of urgency. Red, everybody knows that red usually denotes danger. So that's generally what the warm colors are used for. They give you this sense of adrenaline rush, right? Compared to cool colors that are calming, they represent water, night, nature, like the green. So they are usually created with a combination of blue and warm colors. So that's where the cool colors are gotten from. Then that terminology is also the color variation. I'm introducing us to there's a lot of concepts in color psychology. Seriously, there's the color. We've gone through the color wheel, color temperature. Now you have color variation. So if you were in the last class when I was messing around with the color tool of Figma, we talked a little bit about hue, saturation, and lightness. Right, so these are color variations. So sometimes you can see pink and you see another pink, but they're not exactly the same. So what is the difference between both of them? Right. So now the first terminology we're going to look at here is hue. Hue is simply a pure color with no addition. So a pure color, pure blue, pure red, pure yellow, pure purple is a hue with no addition. And a tint is a hue with white added to it. So simply, let's say you combine white and red, it gives you pink. So now that pink now is a tint of red. So I don't know if that is making sense. And now you have shade. A shade is a hue with black attached to it. We create burgundy by combining black and red. Then a tone is a hue with black and white, or rather gray added to it. So these are different color variations that we would find. And it's actually useful in monochromatic designs where probably you're using just one color, but you're using different shades and tints of the same color, right? So furthermore, you can also find terminology such as chroma, saturation, and value. So chroma is a color's purity. The higher the chroma, the more pure the color, right? Saturation is the overall strength or weakness of the color. The higher the saturation, the stronger the color. While value is the level of darkness or lightness, the lighter the color, the value, the higher the value. So these are terminology that people will probably throw around, like they just throw it around to you in a design space. So just get familiar with it and try to understand the concept so you do not get confused or get lost in those kind of conversations. So when we enter, we're still going to go into Figma and show us this color wheel or the color tool rather in Figma and how we can apply these color variations to get different variations of a particular color in Figma. We also have color models, right? So there are basically two types of color models that we use. So we have the subtractive color model, like the one I mentioned before, where we have red, yellow, and blue. So it's gotten from subtracting light and is presented by two color systems, red, white, and blue, and cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So if you have been in the printing space, you would know that the color model that printers use is this TMYK color model. Because that's the color system they use. So they consider cyan, magenta, and yellow as the most effective set of colors to combine, and it is used commonly in print. So this color model just simply means that if I'm using a subtractive color model and I'm basing my system on CMYK, that's cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, it means that whatever color I'm using, if by chance I'm using pink or I'm using purple in my design, that purple was gotten from a combination of one or two or more of these colors. So that's basically what it means, that I am modeling my design on these colors rather. So the addictive color model is the one we use in the digital space. That's the RGB color system. It defines red, blue, and green as primary colors. And the combination of these primary colors would give the secondary colors. Right. Then we also have color scheme. So a color scheme is a set of colors that work well together. We have the monochromatic color schemes, which is this only one color in different shade and tone. The superpower of the monochromatic color scheme is simplicity. It doesn't leave room for mistakes in mixing colors, and it supports a sort of minimalistic approach. So if you have seen an application that the only color used there is probably blue with gray, like you could see black, you could see different shades of gray, but the main color used in that application is blue, just different shades of blue. That's a monochromatic color scheme. right? So from this image here, you can see that it's just saying that you're going to use just one color but different shades of it. Different shades of it. You have the yellow, you have a darker yellow, you have a lighter yellow, but it's the same color, the same hue, but different lightness, different shades, different tones. So the monochromatic color scheme is very simple, and it's also it doesn't it's because of its simplicity, it's also minimalistic. So there's no room for a lot of mistakes in using this color scheme. So depending on the application you're creating and the color scheme you think would be best for it. If you want something simple, something very minimalistic, then go for the monochromatic color scheme. And you also have the analogous color scheme, which uses color that lie together on the color wheel. So this kind of scheme doesn't create much contrast and looks good on various web pages, banners, and pop-ups. So what this color scheme does is just it simply uses colors that are together, that are close by on the color scheme. So um from this picture here, you can see that let's say the one in the middle is the primary color you're working with. Then you want to look for colors that work well with this color. You just simply go one step to the left and one step to the right. Right? So like yeah, so for example, now this CodeCamp logo, you can see from here this green and blue. Green and blue. This CodeCamp, their brand identity, they are using an analogous color scheme because they're simply using colors that are beside each other on the color wheel, which is simply green and blue. Basically, what their brand identity is. Right. So it's another color scheme that we can use, and it's not very shouty, it doesn't create much contrast, so it's something you can use easily and blend because if the colors are together on the color wheel, it means that they're a little bit similar. Right? So they can either all be warm tone or they are pointing at the same hue. Then we also have the complementary color schemes. This scheme uses color opposite each other on the color wheel. This kind of scheme is perfect for creating catchy and obvious contrast. So complementary, just simply colors opposite each other. So you have your color wheel, then you pick a particular color, you look at the color opposite it, directly opposite it on the color wheel, and you select it. So it's a good example is red and blue. You mix red and blue, they are both complementary colors. They are opposite each other on the color wheel, and they are very obvious, very eye-catching when we blend those two colors together. So we also have other color schemes. We have the split complementary color schemes. It's simply you have your complementary color scheme. So complementary, like I said before, is using two colors opposite each other. So now instead of using two colors opposite each other, you have your color that you want, check for the color opposite it, and you pick two colors beside the color opposite it instead of the color itself. So this gives you a split complementary scheme. And now this split complementary scheme is not as shouty as the complementary scheme itself. It's more the contrast is lower, so it blends better and the balance is better than the complementary scheme that is very, very shouty and eye-catching. Then we also have the triadic color scheme. It's simply picking selecting three colors that makes a triangle on the color wheel. So this triadic color scheme now will give you balance, the perfect balance of colors. No one is dominant, no one is too shouty, none is too loud, but it's just properly balanced. Right? So we also have the tetradic color scheme. So this is just simply a mixture of two complementary colors. You have your first color. Let's say I'm going with orange. I look at what's opposite it, and it's blue or cyan rather. Then okay, I have another color. I want to go with pink. Opposite it, I have yellow. So now I have four colors that I'm working with. So that's how I get my tetradic color scheme. Now, according to color theory, of all these color schemes, the one that would usually advise us to implement in our designs are the tetradic, the triadic, and the complementary. Monochromatic too. Yeah. So the complementary, use complementary for very eye-catching design. Maybe for websites, the 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 hero page of a website is very, very loud. So that's where you should be using complementary in. But for an application's user interface, it's not really advisable because it can be very contrasting, can be very catchy. Yeah, we're not trying to distract our users. We're just trying to make our designs attractive and easy to use. We also have the tetra, the color scheme is from what you can see, it's balanced. We also have visual harmony. So these colors are very balanced. Then we also have the triadic. So to start to get a color palette, or let's say we want to use the color wheel. So how you start is from whatever color you want to use. You have edited on your application, you have done your research, so you know what direction you're going to. And let's say you finally decided on a color, right? But your color and you do not want a monochromatic scheme. You want to blend it with other colors because you just don't want an application that has only one color in it. So now you're on the mission of finding other colors that work well with the color your primary color now. So that's when we start applying the color schemes to start seeing what combinations we can create and how harmonic and balanced they would be in our design. Right, so now we have talked about color as an element. We have talked about the different tools, the color wheel, and all that. So let's talk a little bit about color psychology, understanding the power of color. All right, so now, like I said, it's important to understand the emotional impact of colors in order to know how to apply them correctly. Right? So if you have your brand identity, you have it written down, you have it tailored. But now you're looking for colors that reflect that brand identity. Let's say you want people to come to your application and um feel sophisticated. Like you want the atmosphere to be formal and elegant. So with the use of color psychology, you can start evoking these emotions without even saying anything, just by virtue of colors. Usually when I'm talking with a client or when I'm talking to someone that wants to design something, I simply ask them, how do you want people to feel when they come into your application? So it's a question that usually gives a very, very good idea of what colors, where should we be going, or what direction should this design be going? How do you want people to feel? If someone comes into your application to, how do you want them, what values do you want to show via your website or your brand identity? Okay. So simple principles of color psychology is that one, color has a meaning. Simply, a color now is not just simply a visual. It has a meaning. Let's say you're seeing red. It's not just red and attractive. It also ignites feelings of fear, right? Or feeling of urgency in you. So now you're trying to say that color has a meaning. All right. And this meaning is based on biological and environmental experience. The red I just talked about, fire now, the fire that we know is red, right? And fire is usually linked to harm and danger. So we have kind of taken this literal meaning, this natural meaning, and ascribed it to the color red. The same way with green of trees, plants. So now if you see a green colors, you think nature, You think agriculture. If you check most agricultural platforms, most health platforms, they're all green. They are green or blue because these are calming colors. So, like I said, the meaning of a color sometimes can be based on natural environment, our biological and our environment, our biology and our environment. The third one is color perception automatically triggers human evaluation. So simply, when you see a red light, it tells you to stop. When you see a blue light, a yellow light, you can get ready. When you see a green light, it says go. Right. So apart from the cue or the wordings ascribed to these colors or the information that we have gotten that this color means a particular thing. Once you see a color, the color red, by virtue of the meaning that we have ascribed to it, as I said before, a color has meaning. It automatically will trigger a behavior in us. Right. So if we enter a room and the color of the room, maybe the light bulb is a red bulb, you're going to see that you would get stressed easily, right? So automatically, your perception of a color will trigger your human instincts, your evaluation. It would request your brain to react to this color, right? And color evaluation determines color motivated behavior. So I've already said this. How we evaluate a color will determine how we behave towards the color. So red, danger. So we are perceiving it, or we are evaluating that this is danger, and it's telling us to stop. So our motivated behavior now would be to stop. And also color exerts an influence, like I've said already. And color meaning and its effects are determined by context. So yes, we know red is the color of danger, but sometimes in some situations you see we use Netflix here. We use Netflix, so and I don't think we enter Netflix and we get scared or we are filled with fear. Right? So depending on context, color meaning can change. So these are the different principles of color psychology. And if you want to get into them closely, we have a red color psychology. Like I've said, red is associated with power, energy, and strength. It can also be related to love, passion, and anger or danger. So most times you see all these dating applications, they use red, they use pink because red is also associated with love and passion. Even some athletic applications where you do exercise and all, they might use red to trigger an action. Also, we also use red for things like a delete button or maybe a warning signal. We use red because it's the color that is going to evoke that sense of danger in us, that alertness. So that okay, let's say you're trying to delete something and a pop-up comes in. Are you sure you want to delete this? It's probably come up in red in red. Then you now see no. Then you now see another option, delete, maybe a delete button, and it will obviously be in red. So that it gives you a stop to like think about your action. Am I sure this is what I want to do? Right, so this is how we can apply color psychology to manipulate the emotions of our users. Right? So another color is green. The color green is associated with nature. It's called the color of balance and harmony, connected to youth, growth, and renewing. It's often applied to green topics such as ecology, sustainability, environmental protection, and healthy foods. Green has a calming effect and increases concentration, associated with wealth, health, and growth, inspires trust, credibility, and loyalty. Right? So just from simply looking at the green color, if you see a website and the primary color is green, has a lot of green visuals, it already gives you the sense of this website or this application should be gearing into things like green topics. It could be environmental, it could be ecology, it could be agricultural, it could be food and health. Okay. So we also have blue color psychology. So blue is a color of trust and stability. Also a color of evokes playfulness in our users. So depending on also one thing about these colors is that do not just take it at face value, like blue fix this. So remember that we have different shades and tints of blue. Okay. So like the green I mentioned before, green itself has a calming effect, but the dark green, that's a shade of green, will inspire trust, credibility, and loyalty compared to the lighter green that's giving more of an agricultural vibe and ecology and sustainability. Same thing with blue. A light blue might um, remind you of babies and playful elements, but a darker blue, a more solid blue, would give you this solidarity and trust and stability. Right? So blue evokes serenity, trust, and security. Can also appear cold, unappetizing, unemotional, and aloof. Right? So blue is probably a very bad color for um, applications that or designs that cater towards food and all that because it's a cold color, it's a very cool color. When you think about food and human instincts, we want to be aroused. We want that emotion of that. So you think about red colors, yellow, orange in that situation. So we also have yellow psychology. Simply, yellow is the color of happiness. We all know that it's friendly, it evokes joy, it brings nature and makes it inspiring. However, choosing too much yellow can result in negative perception and make people feel fear. Right? So yellow can evoke feelings of optimism, happiness, and warmth. Yellow can also cause anxiety, fear, and so we just have to know the balance between lots other colors and a lot of other meanings that we can attach to these colors. We have the orange, which is associated with warmth, creativity, adventure, and freshness. We have purple, which is associated with royalty, luxury, and indulgence. We have white, and we have black, which means serious business, with overtones of severity and mystery. It's also a positive blank bank balance and smart, attractive clothing. So different color psychology. So when you're choosing colors for your design, it's what all this is trying to tell is that when you're choosing colors for your design, it's not just do not choose colors out of thin air, right? So I'm giving us the knowledge now that each color meaning. That's the very first principle of color psychology. So each color has a meaning. So if you are choosing a color, we should be choosing the color with the intent that that is the meaning we are trying to inculcate, or that's the meaning we are trying to share. So if this color does not is not associated with the meaning you want your brand to be inspiring, it's not the color you should be using. But these colors are not it's not set standards, not set standards because you can use purple for a branding application. So it doesn't mean that we always have to stick stick to it by the book, but it just helps us, it directs us, especially when choosing our brand colors. Right? So for your brand now, for whatever product that you're creating, remember we are dealing with our users in mind. We want them to achieve something. We are trying to solve a problem for them. Yeah. So and for For us to solve that problem effectively, we're now trying to ensure that we are inculcating or we are evoking the right emotions in these our users. So what are these personalities or emotions that we can portray using colors. We have sincerity. You can use colors like blue, green, colors that gives this sense of reliability. You have excitement. You think red, yellow, orange. You have competence, green, blue. You see the blue of LinkedIn. They're just a very minimalistic application that just uses one brand color, blue, right? So it gives a sense of competence, intelligence, successful. You have sophistication. Yeah, you think purple. Depends on, you can use a royal blue. You also have ruggedness. You see outdoorsy, tough. You start thinking about things like brown. Like I said, nature informs your color. Brown, because people associate brown with wood, with sand, with earth. So that's why you see most of all these outdoorsy applications and all. You see colors like orange and brown because via their perception of the environment, that meaning has been gotten from those colors. So now we have gone through color psychology and the colors to choose the color you want for your mix and match these colors so that your UI, the user interfaces, it still stays attractive and user friendly. So those were the reasons why we had to touch those two aspects of color psychology. Now we want to get into the process of actually creating our color palette. Right? So your color palette derived from the artist palette is simply your paint box. It holds a specific set of colors that you want to use when designing your application or your website to get the best visual harmony for your brand's target users. Define your brand identity and keep its looks consistent across the user interface. In designing with Figma, the hue, saturation, and lightness color scheme is the most commonly used color model. So in if you go to Figma, there are different, you see different color models. There you see RGB, you see hex code, you see hue, saturation, lightness, you see hue, saturation, lightness. So the most preferred ones, people usually prefer hue, saturation, lightness because it's the easiest to manipulate. Right? So after I go through this tips for creating your UI color palette, we'll look at the HSL color model in Figma, how to work with it when choosing colors for our design. So the very first tip or the very first step is to choose your color wisely. So usually you would have to use you should have to choose a primary color, choose a secondary color, and your accent color. There are three colors that you would be picking when working on a project or when working on a design. So now, again, this is where the demarcation or the difference between graphic design comes into place. This is not graphic design. You're not going to use 5 colors in your design. You're not going to use 20 colors. 3 colors is enough, right? So most of the times when we would see a lot of colors is in accent colors. Accent and supplementary colors are not colors that we are using in the actual design, but they are used to they are supplementary. They are used to denote a or to encourage a meaning rather. So now in accent colors, now you're going to see things like green. So green means success. From color psychology, we have associated green with success. So let's say you created your account and you get a pop-up notification and you have a little illustration here that is congratulating you on creating your account. So that pop-up notification now can be green in color. So now that is not your brand color, but it's an accent color because it's the color you're using to supplement your main colors. So usually we use green for success pop-up, success notifications. We use red for error messages. We use blue for informational messages. So just depending on what you're working on, choose your colors wisely. Right? So accent and supplementary colors are they're usually different and just they're usually different, especially when you're creating your color palette. Where you have to focus on is your primary colors and your secondary colors. Your primary color is the color that is going to appear the most in your design. It's probably your brand identity. Let's say I'll share that color with your brand. So for example, you think of Facebook, the blue of Facebook or the green of WhatsApp. So that's their primary color. That is WhatsApp primary color. But you're going to still see other pictures, colors like the blue of their when your message is delivered and seen, the icon changes to a blue color. That blue color now is a supplementary color. It's not their primary color, it's not their secondary color, but a supplementary color. It's used to denote an information or a knowledge or an information to the users. It has a meaning. So that's basically what supplementary colors do for you. But the primary color of WhatsApp is green. Okay, so the first step or the first tip is to choose your color wisely. Think about use all your knowledge on color psychology, your color schemes and color model to choose the colors you're going to be using and possibly the model or the scheme that you'll be working with. So when you have selected your primary color, you can now start looking for your secondary color and your accent colors that works well with your primary color. Right? So a vital point for when you choose your primary color is color contrast. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines give standards for color contrast ratio between the foreground and the background so that it is high enough to be easily readable for most users. So this contrast checker just simply tells you if the color you're using is it especially when you're using more than one color. Let's say you want to use two colors together. So this contrast checker gives you the standard, tells you if you use these two colors together, is the contrast enough that you can easily read an item on this web application. So we're also going to look at the contrast checker, but generally the guidelines states or recommends a contrast ratio of 4.5:1 for normal text. So normal text is like 16 pixel text, 16 to about 32 pixel text. Then 3:1 for large text. So large text is about maybe 64 pixels and above. So that's the the contrast ratio that this web content WCAG guideline recommends to us. So when you choose two colors and the contrast between those two colors gives you a ratio less than this, you are not allowed to use it in your in your design, basically. Because it won't people might not be able to read the information that you are passing and do not be able to use it. So this is also where we think about things like some people that have color blindness. Right, so these are all the accessibility guidelines that we would also look at, especially in colors and fonts, when we are designing the UI of our application. So the second tip is to follow the 60-30-10 rule. So the 60-30-10 rule just simply tells us that we should allocate 60% of your interface to your primary color, 30% to your secondary color, and 10% to your accent colors. Okay. So in this example here, you can see 60% primary color. So they use the primary color as the background. 30% secondary color is the secondary color as the categories here. And the 10% accent color, they use the accent color as the button of the color button. So there's a ratio. It keeps things consistent. Remember, the color is the 60% is for your primary color. It's your primary color for a reason. It's the color that you want. It's the color that you want to stand out. Want it to stand out the most. So we are giving it the most ratio, 60%. Secondary, we're giving secondary 30% and accent color 10%. So I'm not saying you should actually measure this 60, 30, and 10 like with ruler and calculator, but just giving you a direction of how your design elements should be colored. Okay. So when you start seeing that your secondary color is surpassing your primary color, you just know there's a problem somewhere. So that's what the 60-30 rule informs us about. Then the last tip is to simply understand your audience. So like I've said, it's your audience that is informing your decisions. Yeah. We are user interface designers and we are user experience designers. So our users is at the center. So we want to target our users' needs and want to ensure that the color palettes we are using will be successful at targeting our users' needs. Right. So we have to so first things first, always do your user research. That's the reason why we did that research at the beginning phase, and it will still continue to inform us till this stage. If necessary, you go back and you do more research. That is never ending. Okay. Then again, use photos to create your palette. Right. So sometimes, let's say, if you do not have a color, if you don't have a color in mind, or let's say you have. Okay. Sorry, we are past our time. We are past our time. So what we're going to do is we'll continue with the color palette on Thursday. We're going to create a color palette. We'll work with the hues, saturation, and lightness, and we're going to work with the contrast checker and all that. All right. So are there any questions before we end the session? It's already 7 p.m. Are there any questions? We'll continue. Yes, I'm going to share the slide. You all need the slide. I will share the slide by Thursday after we complete the task. So I'm going to share the slide. So Abigail asks, is it necessary that okay, wait, Abigail, I'm going to reply your question. So good night, everybody. Um,
Good night. Thank you so much for filling out.
like,
Hello. Hello, good evening.